Hi everyone, thanks for joining me today. I hope you're ready because we've got something exciting to cover, specifically a few stories that surprised me. Let's get started. And first story, I had a terrible dream. I fell asleep, like always. The only difference was that last night it was next to a woman I had put through a lot of pain, and I was trying my best to win her back. While lying in bed, I was suddenly overcome by a strong feeling of a presence around me. I opened my eyes and my heart was full of fear. I was bound hand and foot by chains, and close to me were other young men with broken spirits. They had given up. In came our captor. His skin was darker than mine, and from our kneeling position he towered above us all. He wore a very rage-filled face with bulging eyes, and his slender build swayed like a scarecrow in a breeze as he walked. That is when the beatings started. Punches, kicks, lashes. I tried to scream, but not even a sound came out of my mouth. The pain and the fear filled me with so much adrenaline that I started to try breaking the chains. All that was going through my mind was, why can't I fight back? Why am I submitting to this inhumane treatment? Why can't I get up and fight back as I always think I can? There was no stopping him. He kept going. All of us captives just took it with pathetic whimpers for mercy. Then suddenly the violence stopped. Everyone started whimpering even more, as if there was something worse coming. I looked around trying to see what they were anticipating in so much fear and dread, but our captor had seemingly vanished from the room. Our captor reappeared, and I understood why everyone else had sunk into dread and despair. Our captor dropped his pants and randomly picked one of us, dragging him into a dark room as he helplessly wailed for mercy. All we could hear next were screams. I don't think I need to tell you what was happening to him. Suddenly, I found myself outside in an open field, alongside one other captive. I heard a voice whispering into my ear, "Run!" Funny thing is, in my dreams, I cannot run bipedal. I went down on all fours and bolted through the field. Behind me, I could hear my fellow captive with barking dogs far behind in hot pursuit. We made it into a homestead that was fenced with rusty iron sheets and rotting wood posts. I leaped over the fence to find structures made of the same iron sheets, but nobody was home. Behind me, I heard my fellow captive scream as the dogs ravaged him. Then there was one gunshot. I knew I was next. I tried running across the homestead to leap over the fence on the other side, but somehow, right in front of me, there was my copter. His eyes were bloodshot, and his face carried a cosmic wrath that made me recoil and fall on my back. He handcuffed me and started dragging me toward one of the structures. It had no door, just darkness filling that gap. I knew what was coming. I started begging myself to wake up, but we only drew closer and closer towards the structure. He crossed the threshold and disappeared into the darkness. I felt the chill of that darkness on my foot as it crossed the threshold too. Then I was upright on the bed sweating. I checked my watch 5 a.m. I looked to my side and my woman was sleeping peacefully. I looked for a pen and wrote everything down before I forgot any of it. I have never been this scared in a dream before. I didn't go back to sleep after that. That dream really turned out to be unpleasant, but what about the next story? Mother. My mother has always been neurotic, which makes sense, but this time something very strange happened to her. It became too much for her, and I am terrified. I was in my room. The lights were off, the door was closed, and I was isolated and alone, as usual. It was a grim night, as always. I felt empty. There weren't many feelings left in me anymore, except for negative ones. Sometimes, when I took enough, the darkness faded for a moment, and I could feel that old familiar warmth again. But that never lasted long. I felt trapped, like I was dying. I started noticing someone coming up the stairs. The door opened, and there was my mother. She started questioning me, asking if I'd used today, and of course, I lied. I didn't. The only reason you care if I did is because you want to fulfill your own selfish needs anyway. Poison came from my mouth, as always. My mother looked at me as if she'd seen a ghost. Her legs seemed to weaken. They began shaking, her eyes rolled back into her head, and she fell to the floor, landing in the position the doctor had told her to use so she wouldn't hurt herself while falling. This wasn't the first time. She lay there for a while. I was in shock. I just stared at her, unable to move. Did I do that? I didn't say anything that bad. What did I do? Those thoughts and countless others raced through my head. I was like an insect unaware. I looked at my mother. She was awake again, standing up, but something didn't feel right. As she stood, she started contorting, not in the way a professional contortionist would, but in a disturbing, unnatural way. I couldn't believe my eyes. Her hands twisted into something I could only describe as those of a bird, and she started ripping, tearing, peeling away, and maiming her own skin. I wanted to claw my eyes out. Seeing my mother like this was unbearable. I did this, I thought. This happened solely because I exist. I was a disgrace. As she twisted and changed, she started stumbling in different directions. First, back into the hallway, then toward the middle of the room, but slowly she began moving toward me, losing more and more of the traits that made her human. I was too afraid to walk past her, or even to move at all. She started destroying everything in my room, tearing apart my bed sheets with her deformed claws and throwing things across the room. I watched my belongings fly through the air, and among them I saw the children's books she'd read to me before bed. I saw the scary books I'd read when I was still a kind, sensitive kid. It brought me to tears seeing these pieces of my past hurled across the room. When everything had been destroyed, torn apart, and broken, she seemed fully deformed, a black, humanoid, bird-like creature with glowing white eyes. She slowly walked out of my room. I heard her go down the stairs, and as suddenly as she had come, she was gone. I sat on my knees in the middle of my room. Why was I like this? Damn shame. Third story. I wish my daughter would stop pretending to be human. This is incredibly difficult for me to talk about. I feel, I don't know, ashamed, I guess, like I've somehow failed as a parent. When I was growing up, I thought my parents hated me. I never wanted that for my daughter. I wanted her to know how much I loved her, that my love was unconditional. I've never felt as proud as I did the day she came into this world. It was almost like looking into a mirror. She had my eyes, my ears, our noses were practically identical, and her smile, God, it was like nothing else mattered in the entire world. I wanted her to have that same pride in herself. I never wanted her to ever feel any self-hatred. That's another thing my parents made me feel. I didn't get their pride. I didn't get their love. I got cold stars. I got nights where I couldn't sleep because mom's cries were so loud. I didn't ask for my family. I didn't ask to be assigned to them. They were supposed to accept me, and they failed miserably. I guess the universe has a strange sense of humor because now it's like my daughter can't accept herself. She doesn't hunt with me anymore. She tries to suppress her urge. She doesn't do the cute little growl she used to do as a baby. I bet it's 10 times as impactful now, but I wouldn't know because she just refuses to practice. She won't even climb trees anymore. She'd rather hide out at home, curled up in the dark, pouting to herself. Of course, I try and comfort her, try and make her realize she should be proud of who she is, but she just rejects me. It seems like that's all life is for me, rejection from the people who are supposed to love me. She tells me I wouldn't get it, whatever the hell that means. She hates her skin, so she tries to cover it up. She hates her teeth, so she refuses to smile. She even wears beanies that she stole from humans to cover her pointy ears. That's something I guess I can respect. At least she's causing harm to them, even if it's just with something as simple as stealing. I just wish she'd steal something useful like meat rather than clothes and makeup. That's something I never quite understood. Makeup clearly makes shedding more difficult. Why would you want life to be harder than it already is? I mean, we already have to hide out in the woods. I guess that's not my place though. It's starting to get more concerning, however. It was already hard to watch her cry because she felt different. Now I have to watch her quite literally alter herself to fit into social norms, as she calls it. She's already filed down her fangs. When she does hunt, all she has now are her claws, and those are much easier to get rid of than teeth. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not with the times. All I know is that I want her to be happy in the body she was given. There are no female specimens left for her to look up to, and I'm just an old, out of touch dad, apparently. I hope this matter resolves itself. I'll keep doing my best to get her to see that they're the monsters, not us. Until then, I'll just keep reminiscing on the simpler times. I kept her shell, and these days, that seems to be the only thing that brings me peace. Well, that and hunting humans. The next story is about a mother who might seem crazy. My parents always have the same argument every night. My dad says I'm fine, but my mom insists that I'm dead. Hey, one of the lurkers here, trying to ask around the internet for some advice over a really bizarre situation I'm facing. Things have gotten out of control. Yesterday was another long night of non-stop arguing from my parents. I'm not exactly a kid, but I still live with them. I know some of you probably have to deal with situations like this too. It sucks, I know, but my case is different. There's something wrong with my mom. Every night she argues with my dad, but the topic is me. My mom is convinced that I'm dead. Like, not emotionally dead. Not, I did something wrong, so you're dead to me. Dead. Physically dead. It's She's not well. My father has started setting appointments with mental health professionals. Well, he was. I guess I'll explain later. Maybe someone can help me out. I'm desperate. God, I guess I'll start at the beginning. So, I'm just an ordinary guy. Nothing much to say about me. Like I said, there was nothing I did wrong. It was just another average day. I was just talking to my mom. We were having breakfast. Out of the blue, she just turned to me and said, "It's a shame what happened to you. You were so young. It's a shame that car hit you and you lost your life." Excuse me? I think I drooled some milk and cereal out of my mouth. I was pretty shocked. You see, my mom is, well, she's a proper lady. Old school. She always kind, always warm. She barely yells and she never cusses. But she also doesn't tell jokes, especially dark ones like that. So when she said that, I was completely floored. It was one of the most out of character things I've ever heard her say. I basically just ignored it as a weird joke and went on with my day. When I got home, she was arguing with my dad about, well, you know what? The first couple of days were really weird. We couldn't tell if she was being serious or not. She would say I'm dead, and my dad would just point at me and say something along the lines of, "That's not funny." After a bit, she'd stop, then continue again the next day. Things have escalated. She started arguing like a lot, coming up with comments that are largely nonsensical. I've heard stories of how I've been burned to death, drowned, electrocuted, hit by car, shot and dropped in acid, apparently. I've given up on trying to convince her. Me moving around and talking to her doesn't seem to faze her. She still persists. My day to day has become beyond bizarre. She asks me constantly what the afterlife is like. I tell her that nothing much has changed. What the hell else am I supposed to answer? I'm not dead. I'm right in front of her, doing the same thing as ever. I just largely ignore her at this point. I know what you're thinking. Well, your mom has gone insane. Yes, I know. I thought so too. But then something happened. One day my grandma came to visit. I love my Nan. She was just in the living room, minding her own business, eyes closed, hands clutched together. I passed her, not sure if she was asleep. She opened her eyes, and I said hi to her. She just smiled and said she was praying. She's quite religious. She said she was praying for me. Cool, I guess. But then she turned to me and explained why. "I'm praying for you, so that your soul can rest in peace." What? I think I froze in place for like a minute. I don't know how. I don't understand it. But my mom convinced my grandma that I'm dead. I couldn't believe it. There was a tiny chance my mom was joking, but my grandma? It it wasn't possible. I should explain something. My mom kind of rules the family. She's kind, she's sweet, she's very convincing. She doesn't get the last say all the time, but when she wants something, people usually just go along with it. I have no fucking clue how she managed to convince my grandmother, but it's clear that something is going on. I just don't understand what. This situation, like I said, escalated. The other day, I was taking a nap in my bed. I suddenly smelled smoke. It was so alarming that I jerked myself out of bed. The burnt smell was coming from me. My mom had taken a lighter to my clothes and tried to set me on fire. Maybe you'll pass on if you get cremated, she said. What the fuck? She was smiling as she said that. This was the first instance of her trying to actually harm me. I keep my distance from her nowadays. After that incident, I went to my dad. This was going too far. She needed help. Maybe my grandma was going senile, but my mom needed help. I talked to my dad. He just looked around awkwardly. I couldn't believe it. She managed to convince my dad, like he's starting to accept the idea that I'm actually dead. I don't know what the fuck is even going on anymore. This family is breaking apart, or it's uniting, I suppose, on the most bizarre and twisted idea I've ever heard of. Life isn't normal anymore. We went to the beach the other week. It was the last time I tried to do anything normal with my family. I fell asleep laying in my towel. When I woke up, I saw my mom above me, smiling. She had buried half of my body in the sand. I could barely move. I screamed and jolted away. The sand felt coarse against my skin and heavy to move out of, but it was right before it felt like solid stone that I squirmed free and got some distance from her. I think she was trying to bury me alive. I fucking yelled so much at her. The whole beach was looking at us. Yelled about this sick joke. About this fucking idea she has that I'm dead. I had enough of it. I don't think I've ever been so angry in my life before. She just looked at me silently, a small smile on her face. The dead shouldn't yell. Fucking hell. What have I gotten myself into? But it doesn't even stop there. It's getting worse. She managed to convince people at my school, my friends, my teachers. No one pays attention to me anymore. When I raise my hand to ask a question, the teacher ignores me. One time she said, "The dead can't ask questions. It's unreal." My friends pretend I'm not there. My family doesn't cook food for me anymore. I'm a stranger in my own home, a ghost wandering. The other day I saw her on her phone. She called me over. "Look at this, Chris." I went to check. I'm very apprehensive about her nowadays. Our relationship is basically non existent, and it is going to stay that way until she gets medical help. It was coffins. She was looking at fucking coffins. "You'll look nice in this one." I can't really express it. The feeling of a loved one casually talking about your death, of intending it. It's not, it's not right, and everyone is starting to take her side. This ordeal is taking too much of a mental toll on me. I'm getting ready to leave town and go somewhere, anywhere. I need to get out. I'm writing this to ask if anyone has encountered anything similar. I know mentally unwell people exist, but to manage to convince basically my entire family and everyone around me, is this some kind of mass psychosis? If anyone has experienced this, please let me know. I'm packing my bags to leave. I need a break. I need to get out first. I'll fix this shit show later. I can't deal with my mom browsing what embalming fluids to use on me. I have to leave before I do something drastic, something I'll regret. I'm not. Wait, update. I was home alone, but my parents just got home. They came in a van. I don't really understand it. We don't own a van. What the fuck? What's going on? There's like 10 people with them. I I don't what the hell is going on? What the hell is this? They're all carrying shovels. The next story is, I fought with a demon. When I was 19 years old, studying in college, staying in hostel, something happened which shook my life and changed me forever. Me and my roommate usually fall asleep in time. One night, I woke up shouting, "Ah!" with pain. My roommate was terrified and switched on the light. Then I got confused. I didn't know what was that pain and why I woke up like that. My friend suggested a nightmare must have caused this. Then I fell asleep. The same happened again and again. As days went on, I trembled before going to sleep. My friend said it must be because of the relationship issues I had with my girlfriend. He said not to worry much and try to sleep well. I tried working on my psyche to be more positive and slept, and then the next few nights it went well. Then one night I woke up, but I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. Someone was sitting on me. I couldn't bear the weight it has on my chest. I tried to cry for help, but nothing. I could open my eyes. Something dark was sitting on me. It was looking like a black smoke. I was terrified, couldn't close my eyes either. I was sweating, my body suffering, and felt like my soul was being sucked. But I had assurance that it failed to do so. After a few minutes, it went away. Then I breathed well and sat up, drank some water, and thought it must be sleep paralysis, along with some hallucination. Then this started happening every night. I shared it with my friend, and he was supportive and motivated not to be afraid. He believed me and suggested the only way is to fight back. When I asked how, he said he didn't know, but I have to figure a way out. He said one night he wouldn't sleep and watch over me. Next day, I asked him about what happened last night since I didn't get any disturbance that night. He said, "You are already terrified, but I have to tell you the truth. I was acting like sleeping, but actually I was watching you as long as I could. I saw a girl-like figure stand beside you, but it didn't do anything, and I had a strong feeling that it knew that I was watching. I was terrified and prayed to God and closed my eyes. I don't know how long I stayed like that before I slept. The next night, I was ready. I was acting like sleeping, waiting for it to come. I didn't know what to do when it comes, but I was determined that I would fight back this time. Then it happened. It sat on me. Since I hadn't slept, I tried to push it. The smoke held my hands. I couldn't move. Then I felt something which brings chills down my spine, even when I remember now. I felt its breathing hair fall on my hands. It had a body, it was breathing, it had mass. So even though I was terrified of its breathing air falling on my arms, at least this time I knew something about it. I pushed and said, "Let's see this time who wins." It pressed its face on my hands like it wanted to bite me, but it actually couldn't, and felt heavy smoke covering my hands. We stayed like that for a while, nobody winning. Then I felt the smoke trying to get inside my body. "So this is what you have been trying daily. You couldn't get in even when I was sleeping. You can't now." I pushed with one hand and I placed my other hand on my stomach where the smoke slightly got in and pulled the smoke out. "Show me what you've got," I said. Then the smoke turned into a shape, a woman-like face with fangs, big eyes and hair from head to covering entire body. I angered it, it seemed, and it was manifesting physically, slowly. Then it was easy. I was able to push it, and then I punched it again and again. I don't know whether it really hit or it just went through the smoke-like figure. But it was really satisfying punching back. Its face was getting clearer as it went on. I could see its face with surprise and didn't want to do this anymore. I tried to hold its hands as I was not done with it, but it vanished. My friend had woken up just during the last part, and he said, "I saw it. You fought back. That thing looked terrifying." "I think I shouldn't be an atheist anymore," I said. Fully charged, I started working at the factory because the pay was better than anything else nearby. The factory manufactured luminous emergency signs for office buildings, hospitals, schools, and underground stations. Things like fire exits, stairwell markers, and evacuation arrows. The kind of things nobody noticed until the lights went out. My job was simple. I painted the lettering and symbols with a thick layer of luminous paint, left the signs to dry, then slide them under a row of bright ultraviolet lights. After 10 minutes, each sign was placed inside a dark inspection cabinet to make sure it glowed evenly. The paint had a chemical smell, somewhere between wet plaster and burnt rubber, but the supervisors insisted it was harmless. "It's water-based," we were told during training, no different from decorating paint. We were given aprons and told to wash our hands before eating. There were gloves in the storeroom as well, but our manager discouraged us from using them because they made the brushes harder to control. Nobody wore masks. The paint got everywhere, underneath our fingernails, on our sleeves, in our hair. We found pale fingerprints on our phones and bags. Once, Lucy put her hand inside the inspection cabinet and noticed the skin around her nails glowing faintly. We all thought it was funny at the time. Look, she said, wiggling her fingers in the darkness. I'm one of the signs now. The glow faded within seconds of her pulling her hand out, and none of us thought about it again. Lucy was the first person to become noticeably ill. She complained about headaches and a metallic taste that never went away. Then her gums began bleeding whenever she brushed her teeth. Her doctor told her she was probably anemic. After that, others started mentioning things. Nadia's wrists ached whenever she worked near the ultraviolet lights. Elaine developed a rash across both of her hands. A woman on the morning shift started vomiting before work and blamed the smell of the paint. I also felt unwell sometimes, but never badly enough to leave or miss work. I had frequent headaches and a tightness in my chest after long shifts. Some mornings I woke up with the same metallic taste Lucy described, but none of us connected it to the factory. Why would we? We had been told that the paint was safe. The signs were going into hospitals and schools. Surely a company couldn't put something dangerous into products designed to protect people. Management held a meeting after 3 workers called in sick during the same week. The factory manager stood in front of us with a printed report and said that all equipment had passed every required safety test. He blamed the symptoms on a combination of a seasonal virus, dehydration, and poor diets. Some of you are working long hours, he said. Please remember to take care of yourselves. They installed a water cooler beside the break room. That was the only change. Lucy didn't return after her next doctor's appointment. She messaged me to say she had been admitted to hospital because her white blood cell count was dangerously low. A week later, the power went out. It happened near the end of the afternoon shift, seconds after we had finished activating a large batch of signs for a new railway station. The ultraviolet lamps cut off first, then the main lights and machinery died together. For a moment, the factory was completely dark. Then the signs began to glow. Rows of arrows and white figures glowed across the work tables, their light filling the room with a faint, sickly haze. Someone laughed nervously. At least we know they work. A second laugh answered from the other side of the room. That was when we saw her teeth. They glowed through her open mouth, not brightly, but enough to outline every tooth in a pale green light. The laughter stopped soon after. Next to me, Elaine whispered something, and I could see her teeth glowing too. Then Nadia raised both hands to her face, and her fingertips were shining beneath the skin. As our eyes adjusted to the dark, more of us became visible. Faint lines ran along wrists and forearms. The outlines of ribs appeared from under blouses and aprons. The person who had worked there the longest glowed the brightest. Margaret had been at the factory for almost 5 years. In the darkness, I could see most of her skeleton. Her hands, jaw, and ribs were clearly visible underneath her skin. She looked down at herself and began to cry. I raised my own hands to my face. Thin green lines marked the bones of my fingers. The sight made my stomach turn. The paint didn't just stain us, it had built up inside our bodies, little by little. Every minute under the ultraviolet lamps had charged whatever had settled in our teeth and bones. We had never noticed because the glow faded quickly once we left the lamps. By the time we reached home and went to bed, there was nothing left to see. The power cut had trapped us in complete darkness while we were still fully charged. The emergency lights never came on. Instead, the factory manager entered carrying a flashlight, followed closely by 2 supervisors. He swept the beam across the glowing room. When the light passed over his face, he looked frightened but not surprised. Everyone remains where you are, he said. The backup system will be restored shortly. Margaret stepped towards him. You knew. He lifted a hand. Most of you are still below the treatment threshold. It was quiet for a second. Then Nadia broke the silence. What treatment threshold? She asked. The manager realized what he had said and started backing away towards the nearest exit. Margaret lunged at him. The supervisors tried to hold her back, but the room erupted. Women shouted, shoved tables aside, and reached for their phones. One supervisor attempted to lock the main exit. That was when Elaine collapsed. She hit the floor hard, coughing violently. The glow around her jaw brightened, then spread down her neck and across her chest. Someone called an ambulance while three of us forced the exit open. The company tried to stop us from leaving. Later, they claimed it was because they were worried about contamination. I think they were worried about witnesses. Emergency services arrived within minutes. By then, several workers had collapsed. Others were vomiting or bleeding from their mouths. We were taken to hospital and quarantined. At first, the doctors didn't know what they were dealing with. The chemical composition of the paint had not been accurately disclosed on the product sheets provided by the company. It contained several undeclared substances, including one designed to bind permanently to mineral structures. Bones, in other words. The doctors washed us repeatedly, removed our clothing, and gave us medication intended to draw as much of the chemical as possible from our bodies. They kept the wards dim because bright lights caused the pain to worsen. The worst cases needed bone marrow treatment and surgery. Lucy died 2 days after we were admitted. Margaret died the following week. Elaine survived, but part of her jaw had to be removed. Nadia spent 3 months in hospital and still uses a wheelchair. I was luckier. I had worked at the factory for less than 6 months. Most of the material had not yet settled deeply into my bones. The company denied knowing the paint was dangerous. They said workers had ignored safety guidance, despite never giving us masks and actively discouraging gloves. They claimed the manager's comment about a treatment threshold had been misunderstood. The closed factory and reopened under another name 6 months later. The doctors told me that the chemicals still circulating in my body should leave my system within a year. Most nights, I believe them. Then the power goes out, or I step into a dark room after spending too long in bright light, and I can still see my teeth glowing in the mirror. They are much dimmer now. Those who had worked there longer were not so fortunate. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget to show your support by liking and subscribing. Also, share your thoughts on the stories in the comments. See you